Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this extraordinary meeting of Wingecarribee Shire Council on Wednesday, the 29th of June. Acknowledgement of country. Wingecarribee Shire Council acknowledge the Gundungurra and Thorowal people as the traditional custodians of this land we now call Wingecarribee Shire. I pay my respects to elders both past, present and emerging. I would also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders present here or watching today. The Statement of Ethical Obligations Acknowledgement. As Interim Administrator, I will undertake the duties of the Office of Administrator in the best interests of the people of Wingecarribee Shire Council area and to act faithfully and impartially in carrying out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act 1993 and any other act to the best of my ability and judgment. I am committed to the declaration of conflicts of interest in relation to items listed for consideration on the agenda or which are considered at this meeting in accordance with the Code of Conduct and Code of Meeting Practice. Obviously, there's no apologies. General Manager, declarations of interest?
There are no declarations, Mr. May.
Thank you. The first item is the 2022-23 operational plan and budget. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. Council is setting the organisation to refocus on the future and address areas of key community concern. The 22-23 operational plan and budget outlines Council's works for the year ahead with a major focus on roads, maintenance and renewal. An additional $1.3 million towards a new pothole crew to enable us to increase the level of service toward maintaining our roads in a safe manner whilst we undertake a comprehensive renewal over the coming years. Other key roads related projects include completing the detailed design for the Moss Vale bypass with the assistance of state government funding, a $4.3 million upgrade of Station Street, and over $6 million on road renewal projects across the Shire. The 22-23 budget also provides a significant capital works program of over $60 million. This includes projects, in addition to roads, projects around water and sewer, infrastructure, stormwater drainage, as well as community and recreation facilities. We will also continue to focus on the future through completion of the community and recreational facility strategy, the integrated transport strategy, and progressing the Bowral Master Plan. As we move forward to reset the organisation, we'll be focused on our roadmap, with the next 12 months taking a back to basics approach, and we'll continue to focus on the future and our community, reinvigorating our workplace and rebuilding and restoring trust between the community and council. Before I ask the Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Kuzmanowski, to speak to the budget, I would just like to thank all of the management team for their work in bringing together the budget, the Capital Works program and the operational plan. Whilst it's distilled down into a couple of hundred pages, there's been a few thousand hours worth of work go into it, and I appreciate their work in bringing the budget and the operational plan to the council. I'll hand over to Mr. Kuzmanowski. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. At the extraordinary meeting on the 4th of May, Council resolved to place the draft operational plan, fees and charges and the long-term financial plan on public exhibition for 28 days. This report advises on Council of the outcome of the exhibition and recommends the adoption of the operational plan and budget, fees and charges and long-term financial plan. The draft plan was publicly exhibited from the 13th of May to the 10th of June 2022. Community feedback was sought via a number of methods, utilising and providing opportunities for community comment, including a project page on Council's community engagement platform, Your Say Wingecarribee, which included the plans, frequently asked questions, a capital works map, and an electronic feedback form. Over 3,500 registered users were alerted to the opportunity to comment. There were also 2 media releases, and information was provided on Council's Facebook page, Council's community update, and Council's weekly e-newsletter. Consultations were also held during the public exhibition period with Council staff in attendance to answer questions and hear thoughts on the draft documents. These were held at Robertson, Hilltop, Mossvale and Bundanoon between the 13th of May and the 25th of May. A total of 23 residents attended the consultation sessions. Council has received 12 submissions in response to the public exhibition. The key themes arising were the need to focus on environment and sustainability, infrastructure in general, as well as more specific issues such as footpaths, street lighting and facilities. General feedback for Council was also provided. One submission raised an objection to the 2% rate increase. All submissions received have been reviewed and given due consideration. Based on the submissions, the following changes are recommended. Bundanoon Soldiers Hall renewal has been included in the Capital Works program. It is also recommended that the wording of one annual deliverable be amended and an additional annual deliverable relating to the Bush Care program be included. An internal review was also undertaken by Council staff which resulted in an additional 6 annual deliverables and the amendment of the wording of 2 annual deliverables, and these are outlined on page 12 of the agenda. I'll now hand over to the CFO to discuss the budget.
Apologies there, Mr. May. That clearly was not Mr. Kuzmanowski. Thank you, Group Manager Corporate
And I can tell the
Services.
difference.
Thank you. Sorry, everybody. So just to touch on the financials, the 22-23 operational plan and budget, fees and charges and LTFP, long-term financial plan, have been publicly exhibited as outlined in the report. In adopting this budget, Council will deliver $126 million in operational expenditure on key services and infrastructure maintenance, whilst delivering approximately $60 million in capital works during the 22-23 financial year. The attached documents were exhibited with the revised indexation of Council's fees and charges from 2% to 4.4% in accordance with the March 22 All Sydney CPI Index indicators as resolved by Council. The financial implications of these changes have resulted in Council reducing its accounting operating deficit from approximately $2.5 million to $1.4 million. That's your profit and loss. That's your profit and loss statement. The nature of the accounting deficit has arisen from Council accumulating revenue in previous financial years and expending them in the 22-23 financial years and subsequent years on operating activities. The total of these non-recurrent activities is approximately $1.7 million for the 22-23 financial year, and there are adequate funds in the relevant financial reserves to fund these activities for their nominated timeframes throughout the long-term financial plan. The result of these changes has seen Council's revised unrestricted working capital position increased from what we referred to as a balanced budget at the May Extraordinary Council meeting to a surplus of $393,000. Incorporating the $5 million unrestricted working capital from the adopted financial reserves policy, the total unrestricted working capital position is now $5.393 million. On June 20, Council was advised by IPART that the application for the rates correction through the additional special variation process was successful, with a total rate increase of 2% to be applied to the 22-23 Council rates and charges into perpetuity. The increase has been incorporated into the rating tables and the revenue policy in the 22-23 operational plan for adoption. The rates correction will allow Council to maintain essential community services and infrastructure to the community. In relation to the amendments to the budget, there was a $9.8 million reduction in the 22-23 Capital Works program to better align the cash flows of some projects to the deliverables. The details of those proposed changes are outlined in the report and incorporated into the plans for adoption. In summary, the budget presented is a financially responsible budget which enables a number of key deliverables to commence and be delivered during the 22-23 financial year. Thank you.
Thank you, for that. Look, if I could just join the General Manager and thank everybody for the work that's obviously gone into this document. From a past life, I'm very conscious of what it takes to coordinate this and get it out. Is it fair to say, and probably this question to the GM, that the approach to the budget and what you've done in quarterly financial statements is to make a more realistic approach to what you can deliver in the way of capital works, not you, the council, can deliver in the way of capital works in the 22-23 financial year?
Yes, Mr. May, that would be a fair statement. And in framing up the budget, and as referenced by the CFO, we're refining our project management approach and the scheduling of works, but as the CFO mentioned, the cash flow associated with projects, and that is part of rebuilding the trust. So the director has worked very closely with her managers to ensure that we have a program that is realistic for the coming 12 months.
I note that there's no loans in the coming financial year. The last budget made provision for 4.376 million. How much did we actually borrow? Are you aware?
We didn't borrow any this year, so through subsequent budget adjustments, the requirement for the loans were not required for this current financial year. For the 22-23 financial year, we've deferred one of the loans attributed to Moss Vale Cemetery, which has been deferred into the 23-24 financial year.
In the forward financial plans, the fact that the council has not borrowed for the last 2 financial years then, or this financial year and the next financial year, is there adequate provision in the forward financial plans, particularly in water and sewer, that's covered? Because you're heading off in a major capital works program over the next five years.
That's correct. I believe there is, and looking at the assumptions with those loan repayments, I believe those funds will be able to sustain those loan repayments.
Good. I'm pleased that you're acknowledging from the 1st of July the 5 million, and just because the council has working funds of 5.4 million or 5.393 million doesn't mean you can spend it. It's rainy day weather, and it's important that be recognised by an incoming council. But I think it's more transparent, honest and open with the community, so let the community know what the council does have in the way of working funds, instead of putting it into reserves, which I still think was a sneaky approach. And now we're being open and in what we're doing with that. I really don't have any questions in relation to the financing, but I do have some questions in relation to submissions. So, Miss Lidgard, that's your yeah. It's good to see Andy Carnahan has a sense of humour, if I could say that about his wombat crossings. But he, I think he's the president of the Berrimah Association, the Bundanon Association, I should say. He made a very good point in relation to the renewal of the roof, and I'm pleased that's been addressed in the submissions. Mr. Barnaby, I think 269. I agree with Mr. Barnaby about bins in town centres. I don't know whether I agree with Otto-sized bins, but in town centres. And when we reply to him, could you please draw his attention to what I moved at the meeting where we dealt with the draft budget? In other words, I often come back on Sunday afternoons and bins are overflowing, and it's not good enough. And I just think it detracts from the areas. So, but you're on to that. And last but not least, Mrs. Lehman on 259. Bear with me, Mr. Lehman made a substantive submission. My concerns related to something Ms. Lehman picked up that I said at an earlier meeting in relation to the flooding that took place off Mount Gibraltar allegedly from residents as a result of improvements to the path that leads to the stairs. It's not a fire trail. As I understood it from the residents, it's an unmade road. And my observation at that meeting was that if the environment levy, yes, here we are on page 259. Mr. May commented at a council meeting in May that the reserve needed attention to the drainage and fire trail repair, for which there were thought there were funds in the environmental levy reserves. I agree with the statement, fire trails are not environmental levy projects, but that path is not a fire trail, it's a path up to the top of Mount Gibraltar, and there's some sandstone stairs. I visited there again today and nothing appears to have been done at all. The resident sandbags are all still there. I hope it doesn't rain badly like it did before, because you're going to get a repeat. But I believe that to finish this job properly, rather than just build a buttress or whatever you call it, it would be better to spend a bit of the environmental levy money, a bit more of it, and just put a sandstone. It only needs to be, that high to stop the water going onto private properties, because I don't know who went and had a look at it, but I did, and it could have been devastating for the property 3 streets down, where it went through too. So that was only a suggestion. I didn't want to alarm Ms. Lehman by what I said, but I'm not suggesting fire trails. I'm just suggesting if the environmental levy was used to do the works that caused the problem, let the environmental levy be used to fix the problem that's been caused. That was all I was saying. So with that, I do have a few alterations, particularly to the operational plan. I'm concerned that when I have a closer look at the domestic waste service charge, there's no there's no benefit in a resident taking an 80 litre bin against a 240 litre bin. The bigger your bin, the cheaper it becomes, which I think is the wrong way around. The bigger the bin, the more expensive it should become. Per litre, I worked it out. For an 80 litre bin in Winter Carriby, in the next financial year, it'll be $5.97 per annum for 80, but only $3.21 for 240. I don't believe that's what residents want. I think residents want waste minimisation and better environmental response on the part of the council. And the council, or on behalf of the community, pays a fortune to get rid of the garbage. And I think it should, for those who waste minimise, they should get the benefit. and it shouldn't be easy for people just to have a 240 litre bin. Having said that, some people might need a 240 litre bin, so this is not an easy exercise. But I think where a 240 litre bin is delivered, an 80 bin could do the job. I think there should be a cost penalty on that. So all I'm going to suggest is that a review be undertaken during this financial year of the domestic waste service charge with a view to a better aligning with community expectations in relation to waste minimisation and recycling. There's no hurry for that, but I just think it's the reverse of what it should be and what other councils do. I also want to note in the recommendation the unrestricted general fund working capital position. That'll be the 5,039,000. To put it beyond doubt, the 2% productivity gain over the next financial year to be used to fund community priority projects in the 2023-24 financial year. I just want to make that sure that's clearer in the operational plan, and in relation to service reviews to get best value. I just want to make sure that there's a lot of community and stakeholder input into that process, that the council just doesn't go off and engage consultants or whatever. I just want to make sure that's very clear, that this is now a community-based council. And we've got to, I'm not saying it's not, I sort of make it very clear that the community understands and the staff understands the direction we're going. So I would move the officer's recommendation, and it's on the screen there, noting the unrestricted capital, the unrestricted general fund working position. And I could add words discipline will be required, but I won't. Roman numeral 2 clarifies in relation to the 2%. And again, I would state that that 2% is not across the whole budget. That's impossible. We have to get a report back to council on what can be looked at, because there's so many fixed costs, and I'm not suggesting that happened.
Through Mr. May, I believe that was covered in a resolution to the 5th of May, that we bring back a further report, which we will, that will set out that methodology. Thank you.
Okay, this is in a way my only bite to make sure these things happen. They become operational, and I just wanted to make sure, if I'm not here, that the incoming council has the benefit of what I was talking about. And the final thing was in relation to ensuring that there's community and stakeholder input into any service reviews. And when it comes to service reviews of dirt roads, I think you'll get plenty of resident and community input, but at the same time residents have to understand the financial constraints that the council has. In saying that, the new number 9, review the domestic waste service charge, and I've given the reasons why I'm suggesting that. I've moved that. So I move 1 and 2, and changing Roman numeral 1, 2 and 3 into 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and a new number 9, and declare that carried. Well done, everyone. We now move to item number 2, the draft procurement policy for public exhibition.
Thank you,
General
Mr.
Manager.
May. Back to Mr. Kuzmanowski. Thank you.
Thank you. We've gone through a process of reviewing our procurement policy in light of some changes to legislation, and also adding some additional probity provisions around the policy, incorporating it into the policy to make sure that it's not discretionary by staff of in particular allocating probity advisors to certain projects that meet specific criteria. So, in summary, the proposed policy that we're looking to put on public exhibition has two major changes, one being the introduction of modern slavery provisions, which is being mandated by the OLG for some mandatory reporting. So, from our perspective, we will start to track that through our procurement processes, and the other change being the addition, the mandating of probity advisors that meet specific criteria. So that's it. Thank you.
And while unstated in the formal policy, I've been assured that for tenders over the $250,000, and I don't know up to what figure, that's a matter for the staff to deal with, that there will be someone from governance overseeing other departments when they're considering tenders. Is that right?
Sorry, yep, we will be using the procurement team through our centre-led model as independent, so they will be acting as probity advisors through the whole process from commissioning through to the awarding of the contract.
I'm not suggesting anything goes wrong, but it's all about perception, and I think it's important. Having said that, I would move the officer's recommendation in relation to item 6.2 as outlined on page 271 of the business paper and declare that carried. Next item, General Manager, is the Hilltop tender. Speaking of tenders.
Yes, Mr. Mellor. So our acting Manager Water and Sewer. Thank you.
Right. The purpose of the report is to present the evaluation of the request for tender for the sewer rising main replacement along Wilson Drive in Hilltop. The 19-year-old pumped rising main is part of the critical 200mm diameter UPVC trunk line that connects the Hilltop catchment to the Mittagong sewage treatment plant in Braemar. The report states that this 541-metre section has burst 4 times in the past 2 years and 3 times in the past 12 months, the most recent failure being on Friday the 17th of June this year, with a comment that the failures are occurring with greater regularity. This has proved accurate, with the main failing yet again last week on the 23rd of June. The mode of failure is reported to be a longitudinal pipe split, which is symptomatic of a pressure burst. This is likely due to the observed signs of bleaching, demonstrating ultraviolet light degradation of the pipe. UPVC pipe is not UV stable, and so it loses its elasticity, becomes brittle, and it can be prone to failure in the changing pressures of a pumped regime. The proposed replacement by open trenching is to be constructed of an equivalent capacity polyethylene pipe, a material which is well suited to the role. A total of 6 tender submissions were received, ranging from $260,000 to $732,000, with a cluster of bids around $320,000. The tender evaluation panel recommends Athassel Civil be awarded the contract at a lump sum price of $259,901.13.
Thank you, and I note from page 297 there was an independent representative from the procurement support team on that panel evaluation. That's what I've been talking about for a long time, so that's fabulous. So in relation to item 6.3, the Hilltop SPS rising main renewal, I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 293 of the business paper, 1, 2 and 3, and declare that carried. There is a late item which I don't think was circulated within the 3 days, so it'll be necessary to move it as an urgent matter. So I would move that in accordance with clause 9.3b of the Code of Meeting Practice, it be treated as an urgent matter, reconnecting Regional New South Wales Community Events Program Wingecarribee, and declare that carried. And I now formally move that it is an urgent matter and declare that carried. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May, and apologies for the late report. Before I hand over to the Director of Corporate Strategy and Resourcing, the reason for bringing this report to Council is it is a grant opportunity that we need to submit in the next few days, and given the size of the grant, we thought it was important to bring this to Council's attention for endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Through you, Mr. May. The budget for Reconnecting New South Wales Community Events Program budget is part of the New South Wales Government's $200 million regional recovery package, devised to create new jobs and support community events, shows and festivals to boost tourism across the state. The program is non-competitive and open to New South Wales councils. Funds have been allocated to LGAs based on population, and Wingecarribee Shire Council's allocation is $287,582. An application is required to secure the funds and closes on the 8th of July. It is proposed to hold a signature community event following the successes of the Fire Aid 2020 and Council's Community Recovery Concert. The event is intended to deliver on the intent of the program in supporting performers, local artisans and producers, hospitality and accommodation industries that have been identified in the funding guideline as having been heavily impacted by COVID-19 restrictions.
Thank you. Is there any idea when you'll be holding the event?
Through you, Mr. May, yes, it has to be held towards the end of the year, and I think there's a time frame by December.
And will the event be branded to catch people's, if you want to bring tourists and stuff in as well, for the economy, it's going to need to be branded and advertised in the metropolitan press, I would imagine.
We can certainly look at that as part of our marketing for the event. Mr. May?
Look, I'm not suggesting I'm an expert on these kind of events, but if you want to capture the Sydney market, you obviously have to. It's not tulip time. It doesn't happen every year, if I could put it that way. So, no, that's good. Okay, in relation to the late report, item 1.1, I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 3 of the supplementary agenda 1 and 2, and declare that carried. Is there anything else, General Manager?
Yes, Mr. May. I'd just like to formally advise of the resignation of Mr. Jeff King and thank him for his work and commitment over his time with Wingecarribee and his leadership and management of the Communities in Place team, but also his contribution to the executive. It's been a challenging time, and I've appreciated Jeff's contribution and professionalism. And whilst it's disappointing to see Jeff leave us, completely respect that decision. Whilst we recruit for the new director, Marissa Racamilera will be acting. Marissa has previously managed the area and will no doubt build on the work that Jeff has commenced and maintain the momentum and support of the Communities in Place team over the next few months. Thank you, Mr. May.
Do I have? You've got to consult with me in relation to, not an acting person, no. Okay, so that's fine. Okay, well look, as this is Jeff's last meeting, could I personally thank you for your contribution to the reset. You've often said, and I've heard you say, that this has been the hardest gig in your professional career, and I don't think you're on your own in that area. Can I simply say well done? Your work's been appreciated not by the council but by many, many residents as you've addressed righting the wrongs report and so many legacy matters where you've helped residents. I've got to say, I thought your report on the Ashbourne estate was a case study of where this council went wrong with its land use planning decisions, but all the best, whatever you do from here, and you won't be travelling up every day from the lower North Shore. All the best. Having said that, if there's no more, I declare the meeting closed and thank everyone for their attendance.